All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Legacy Evolution Voyager class Trashmaster. Yeah, this is a very cool figure. This is another one of our new original character Junkions from the line. And yeah, this is the first ever like modulator figure that's actually done in the Voyager scale, which is pretty exciting in my opinion. Now, it doesn't come apart quite as much as some of the previous sort of like weaponizer, modulator, fossilator, etc. type figures, but it's got a decent amount of like parts that can be used in some fun ways here. And yeah, this is another one of the Junkions that doesn't actually turn into a motorcycle like they traditionally do. Trashmaster here turns into a garbage truck, which is fun. That's I feel like that's on theme for the Junkions. Haven't gotten a lot of garbage truck Transformers, pretty much just him and an animated wreck-gar. And like, you know, because animated wreck-gar is also, you know, wreck-gar, a Junkion, people are like, oh, they're going to retool this to be animated wreck-gar. I'm like, I guess, maybe, I don't know. I don't really see it. I think a lot of the parts just kind of end up in fundamentally the wrong place to be animated wreck-gar. Like, they could do it, but it's, I don't know. I don't think it really shares a whole lot of similarities with that design other than the fact that it is a garbage truck, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, no, it's a really nice little garbage truck mode. It rolls really nicely. Honestly, this figure has just like a really nice kind of like solid hand feel. Like something about the rolling feels very satisfying to me. I don't know what it is. It does do that thing that the other Junkions have been doing, or at least that Scraphook did, where the hubcaps don't actually roll. It's just the tires, so that when you use these, you know, 5mm ports, they're not like spinning around. So it looks a little strange, kind of like visually looks like the wheels aren't rolling, but they are for the most part. It also has these pieces that attach to the side that you can swivel back and forth that are kind of like the little like grabby arms for where you take the stuff and put it in top, which is, you know, I don't know exactly where the grabby part is. Like, is this piston supposed to go? I don't know, but whatever. Either way, it's nice to have those pieces because these actually are pretty versatile pieces for when you're like doing, you know, Junkion builds and stuff like that, because of, you know, having the peg and the hole on both sides here of both pieces, and then having, you know, the pegs on the opposite sides. It's a pretty useful piece, and you get two of those, which is nice. And then also in the back here, the kind of main weapon part for the figure kind of sits in the back here with this like big chompy jaw, so you can like open that up and open that up, so it's kind of like, you know, where you'd put the trash in. It's kind of the more like excavator version of that, but you know, it works. It's nice to have like something representing that area, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, just a nice kind of Mad Maxy looking dump truck here. Very cool looking. In terms of size comparisons in this mode, for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. And, you know, that mostly works. Like I've said with a lot of these figures, Sideswipe is like maybe a little bit proportionally larger than he should be compared to a lot of figures. So it's like, that scale's not perfect. Like, you know, garbage truck shouldn't really be the same width as a Lamborghini. But, you know, it's smaller car, bigger truck. Like if you look at them next to Earthrise Prime, for example, the cabs are more or less the same size. Trashmaster is maybe a little bit smaller in the cab, but you know, I think it works. This kind of, when you look at the two of them, it kind of makes it look more like a minivan scale, but you know, it's the scale's a bit fudged here, but I think it's a decently sized figure. And then here he is with all of our other Junkions. First of all, just with the other legacy ones, just with Scraphook and Crashbar there, so you can see the three like modulator Junkions together. I mean, the three main ones. There's also like Toe Line and Axle Grease, but just the, you know, the main Autobot ones that are actually in the Junkion colors. And then here he is also with wreck-gar and Scrapyard, whatever his name is, Junk Heap, you know, the old Generations one as well. Just for some more Junkions here. And yeah, I think they all look good together. It's nice to have another one that isn't a motorcycle, so that, you know, Scraphook isn't kind of just like the odd man out there. And again, like as a vehicle to pick for a Junkion, I think a garbage truck makes a lot of sense. So, you know, I think that this works pretty well, and they all look good together. Obviously, you know, since he doesn't turn into a motorcycle, then there's no like interplay with having someone else ride him. It's pretty much just it's got a dump truck. But yeah, you know, and then obviously it still does do the whole like modulator thing too, where part of the things they advertise is if you unlock this section, you can kind of take off the front section here, and then if you take scrap heap, scrap hook, they all have so many similar names. You can kind of replace the parts here and do something like, oh, you got to take the little engines off as well. They're gonna be kind of annoying to get off, just so you can get the oh, all right, fine, I'll separate them. Take these bits off, so just so you have the clearance there, because otherwise the engine bits kind of run into the top there. So you can do stuff like that, you know, which you know, looks okay, but I think this looks actually pretty cool. You do have to kind of bring the side panels out a bit, because otherwise they run in the way. But if you plug on the front half of Trashmaster onto Scrap Heap here, I think that's a pretty, I mean, it looks kind of silly when you've got just like that, but I feel like that makes a pretty cool front end of the vehicle there. And then obviously, you know, you can experiment around with this and do all sorts of different things. And, you know, I had one version where I made kind of like a flatbed truck between the two of them by like using his arms to connect in the middle there, and then that allowed you to connect the leg pieces from Trashmaster on the back here, so it's just kind of like a big flatbed truck. But, you know, I'm not going to go over all the possibilities. Part of the fun is that you kind of play around with it and you know, come up with your own combinations. But just for a basic thing that they kind of show off, they did show like, hey, I mean, they show it with axle grease, but I feel like it looks way better with scrap hook, because it's actually, you know, the appropriate color scheme. But you can like swap the front ends of the vehicles and do that sort of thing. You know, the whole play pattern with the Junkions from Legacy Evolution, and it's a fun thing. I think that like I don't tend to do it all that much, just because like, you know, if you're swapping parts in vehicle modes, that means that they can't like transform, right? Because then they've got the wrong parts. But it all works out. It's all kind of just a fun play pattern thing. But yeah, being another one of the Legacy Evolution, what's the word? Modulators, he's also doing the thing where you don't have to like really take it apart to transform it like we did with previous modulators. I mean, you know, it does a little bit of parts forming just in terms of like how figures usually do, by like you have to take this big part off because this is kind of like the weapon in robot mode. But otherwise you can pretty much do it self-contained. So yeah, we'll just take this bit off, and then, you know, this is the kind of chompy jaw here. One thing that I do find annoying is that this bottom jaw kind of comes unclipped fairly easily if you just kind of grab it the wrong way. And it seems like there's like a bit of warping on this part where this is a little bit too squeezed together. So it's like both of these like little clip sections aren't really locking in at the same time. So there's always like a little bit of wiggle back and forth. But if you're just careful, you know, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, from here we can transform it out without taking anything else off. First thing you want to do is take, you know, just like I did for swapping out the parts there, just take the front end of the truck and just rotate it down like that. And you can take these side panels with little arms on them and just fold these out to the side for now. Take this whole back section, which will be his legs, and just untab it from the arms and kind of bring it down like this. You want to bring the front end down as well and rotate the whole thing around at the waist, and then kind of clip it up into the body here at this gray section. And then we can separate the legs and then rotate down the feet just like that. And then we can kind of just bring these down to the side for now. There's some other stuff you can do with these, which I'll show off, but just by default, that's kind of how they're supposed to be. And then again, just bring the front part of the truck down as well. And then you want to take these sections, which will be the arms, untab them from each other, and then bring them around on these gray panels, and then tab them into place. And then untab the arms from those gray panels, and then rotate them down, and then rotate the forearm and the hand accordingly. Just so everything is facing properly in the in the right direction. And then you want to take this whole panel on the top here and just flip it onto his back, and then the head is just kind of sunk into the body there, so you just flip up that gray panel and it'll lock into place, and there we have Trashmaster in his robot mode. And yeah, he's a really cool robot design, very like chunky and beefy. He's very wide. He's got huge, you know, robo muscles. I love this head design. I'm sure that this is like, I mean, it's obviously inspired by like the G1 Junkions, but I don't know if this is inspired off of like a specific one, but it's got a very nice kind of like bulkhead under jaw, but with lots of spikes on it head design. I just think that looks super cool. But yeah, in terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so you can rotate it around. It doesn't get a ton of like wiggle back and forth just because like the shape of the neck here is kind of flat at the bottom, but a little bit. The shoulders are on swivels here and then can hinge out to the side. They also do have this joint, which I wish, you know, it just plugs into like these tabs, which are meant to look like rearview mirrors. And I wish that that was a little bit of a stronger connection, like more of a clip, because they do tend to come undone a lot and they don't really look that great as like backwards facing butterfly joints. So they're kind of annoying. It's got a thigh swivel, really deep elbow bend there, which is nice. A wrist swivel, and he's got the little guns on his wrist that kind of go with it. He's got a waist swivel. Obviously, the back part here kind of like bumps into things because he does have just kind of like a huge dump truck butt. I guess garbage truck butt technically, but you know, it's a truck that goes to the dump and he's got a dumpy. Yeah, so that rotates around a little bit before kind of banging into things, but it does, the joint does go 360 degrees around if you like move things out of the way. Legs can go forward, back, again, you know, kind of bumping into the butt thing there. He's got a thigh swivel. This is one of the places where it just, you know, pegs in. So he's just got a thigh swivel by virtue of just it being a peg hole connection. He's got about 90 degrees of bend at the knee there, and then the feet can tilt forward and back and out to the side. It's a very stiff joint on the side-to-side ankle tilt, but otherwise pretty good foot articulation there. So yeah, pretty decent all the way around. Obviously, he's got some stuff that kind of, you know, a lot of kibbly bits that kind of bump into each other with these side skirts and then this. And then he also has, obviously, his weapon here, which is like the big, you know, chompy jaw, which, you know, I kind of hate when they do this, when they have like like a piece with two symmetrical pegs on either side and you're just supposed to have them hold one of them, so it's just kind of off center, because you're supposed to just like plug it into the hand like that. I mean, you can plug it in either way. I tend to prefer doing it this way. So he's got kind of like a clampy jaw hand, and that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool look. Again, I just wish it was a little bit more like centered on the arm, especially because it has like this cutout here. It'd be nice if you could actually, like, you know, maintain the elbow bend a bit more by having it go in between those, but there's no way to really like plug it in like that. Like, you can kind of like get it to just sit there, but there's no actual way that it, you know, attaches. So that's kind of a bummer, but you know, not the end of the world, just like a little bit annoying. And then in terms of storage, what I usually do is I just, you know, bend up this gray piece like that and then use these two holes on the top panel here and just peg it in like that. And that works well enough for me. I usually just leave it there. And then likewise, I don't really like the arm pieces kind of hanging off of the side skirts there, just because it gets in the way more than it needs to. So I'll usually, you know, kind of take those off and then peg those onto the side pegs for the little chompy jaw bit, and just peg them in like that so they sit up over his shoulders, just so they're not on the side there and running into his arms. I just feel like that works a little bit cleaner, and then he can actually get his arms a little bit more into his side. So I prefer that, but you know, like with these guys, like they've got all these moving parts, you can kind of do whatever you want. You've got some options there. But yeah, you know, pretty decent robot mode. I think that like the articulation is solid. The aesthetic is really fun. I wish that the weapon integration worked a little bit better, but still pretty good. And then obviously it does have quite a bit of kibble here. And you know, these pieces are the other pieces that, let's see there, we lost the jaw there. These pieces that, you know, were kind of making up the butt piece there are also pieces, they just tab into each other, that you can take off for the kind of modulator gimmick. And when I saw these, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if these could like plug into his wrist somehow, like maybe through these holes, like you know, through the guns here, if they had just like two little pegs, so you could like plug it in so he's got like, you know, brass knuckles or something that are like the front end of like a truck with like a spiky grill. I thought that would be really cool, but there's no way to do that. And there's really nothing else you can do with these for him. Like, I know, you know, the gimmick has kind of shifted for the Junkions to be more about like vehicle mode, like altering for the modulator gimmick, rather than, you know, the first ones, like all the weaponizers and stuff like that, which turned into weapons. But it's kind of a shame that you can't really do anything with these. Like, it's nice that they come apart so you can use them for builds or whatever, but they're not super versatile parts. And, you know, when you actually store them on him, it's just kind of hanging off of his butt here. So, you know, I wish that maybe you could do a bit more with those, but, you know, not the end of the world. But yeah. Before we get on to comparisons, I just wanted to show off kind of how he works with one of the Junkions here. Another one of the Voyager scale Junkions. Obviously, he can't really ride the other, you know, Legacy Evolution motorcycle one, just because, like, he's huge. It doesn't really work. But, you know, this is because he's got this whole butt plate here. Like, I haven't tried this yet, but I doubt it's going to work particularly well. He does have wrist swivels, so we could probably get him to actually hold the handles here. You know, this works better than I was expecting it to. Let's see. Okay, we got one hand on. Yeah, actually, that works fairly well. He can't, I mean, you could use the panel that his head is on and kind of unclick it so you can look forward a little bit more, but, you know, actually that works a lot better. He kind of looks better on there than wreck-gar does, honestly. Like, that's not terrible. I think that works pretty well. So if you're interested to see how that integrates, then that's pretty much all how that works. But yeah, in terms of size comparisons, in this mode, let me just get him back in his normal orientation here. Here he is again with Sideswipe and Optimus Prime, just so you can see how he stacks up there. Pretty short Voyager, but, you know, he kind of makes up for it in width, honestly. So he's quite a bit smaller than Optimus, but obviously very beefy there. I think that works out well. Here he is again with the other Legacy Evolution Junkions, at least the Autobot ones, like I said, with Scrap Hook and Crash Bar. And yeah, honestly, I think of the three, I think Trashmaster is by far the best. I mean, I like all three of these figures, but these two are not without their issues. This one, I think, actually feels the best. I mean, his joints are like a little bit loose, but they're not really like loose like floppy. They're more just like loose like smooth, like in a way that actually feels like kind of pleasant to pose him around, and just in terms of like, yeah, I mean, these joints are like a little bit looser than I might otherwise like them, but it all just kind of like feels good when you're moving the figure, as opposed to things being like so tight, like his bicep swivels, or, you know, like falling apart. Like all of the actual places where his, you know, pieces connect together, those connections are all really solid, so he's not like falling apart all the time like these guys tend to. Like, you know, Crash Bar's legs kind of come off a lot. So yeah, no, I think that he's definitely the winner out of the three of them. And then, like I said, again, here he is with our other Junkions here. We'll get the Generations one in there too, just for a full crew here. But yeah, I don't know. I think he might be the last one, other than like other weird repaints down the road. I don't really consider Toe Line to be a Junkion, so I'm not including him. And also I don't have that figure. And then, you know, like Axel Grease, I guess, is a Junkion, but is a Decepticon one, which is weird, so she doesn't really fit in with them. But yeah, you know, I think that they all look good together. And then, yes, of course, because he is a modulator, he does do the whole coming apart gimmick into different pieces. Again, like I said, doesn't come apart that much in terms of like compared to the other ones. Like we've got, you know, these bits, which obviously come off, and then the weapon bit. So those are some parts that you can use. We've got the legs, like I showed off, those come off. And then we've got these sections here that kind of make up the butt piece. And then the rest of them is just one solid part. I was kind of surprised to see that the arms don't come off in any way. They're actually like, you know, actually pinned into place there. So this is kind of a big unwieldy chunk for builds, but, you know, you can use it for some things. And like I said, they've moved away from doing these as like weapon pieces, so there aren't really like that many fun like armor options. It's more just for like making wacky vehicle modes. But yeah, they did show off that you can make this like big like Junkosaurus Rex type combiner, where it's just like a big T-Rex using this as like a head. But the one that they showed off has, well, one, it has both Scrap Hook and Axle Grease as legs. And like, if I'm doing a Junkion combiner, do I want to use the Decepticon one as part of the combiner? That seems weird. And then it also uses 2 Crash Bar. So like, presumably they're like, oh, maybe they're going to do a repaint of Crash Bar at some point, so that could work out. But as of right now, it's like, I'm not getting a second Crash Bar to do that. Now, I did kind of fiddle around with the design, kind of like basing it off of that, but trying to just like make one from the ground up that just uses this guy and Scrap Hook and Crash Bar, just one of each. And I actually came up with a design that I really liked. I'll put an image of it there because I think that this video is long enough that I don't want to like show off the whole transformation and how to get there in this video. So I'm probably going to put up a separate video and do that just because I'm actually pretty proud of how that build came out and compare it to some other things. So I'll show that off in a different video. But for now, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Trashmaster. He's a fun figure, not that crazy as a modulator, but a really cool design. Looks good in both modes. The joints feel nice and smooth, and it all works pretty well. He doesn't feel like he's falling apart like some of the other modulators do. And yeah, just a really solid figure overall. Definitely would recommend him. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Make sure to check me out on my Instagram account. That's toys.n.art. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Legacy Evolution Voyager class Trashmaster.